Democrats scored two special election victories Tuesday, flipping seats in New Hampshire and Connecticut. Phil Spagnuolo won a special election in his New Hampshire district by a 12-point margin, and Phil Young's win in Connecticut marked the first time a Democrat will hold that district seat in 40 years. The successes are the latest in a string of wins for Democrats. The party has recently picked up seats once held by Republicans in Missouri, Florida, Kentucky, and Wisconsin. Michael Graham is a CBSN political contributor and columnist for the Boston Herald. He's also the host of the Michael in the Morning podcast. All right, Michael, so do these wins indicate a growing shift ahead of the midterms in November, or is it too early to tell?
No, I think there's something going on. We can, things change. You can't, in this, we're talking about the turnover in the White House, the turnover in the world of politics, jumping from topic to topic. It's just crazy. So it's hard to project through the events. But think about this. Since President Trump was elected, Democrats have flipped 38 seats their way. Republicans have flipped 4. So if you want to pick what team you want to be on, 38 or 4, it's pretty easy to see. And President Trump's approval rating, it's funny. I've been listening to people say, he's doing well lately. He's kind of bumping up. He's still at basically 40%. And the pollsters that I talk to, Real Clear Politics and elsewhere, they tell you that really you got to be 43, 44, 45, somewhere up there before the president stops being a drag. So all this adds up to not particularly good news for Republicans in November for the midterm elections.
Well, you wrote a piece, Michael, about Phil Spagnuolo's stance on abortion in the New Hampshire Journal, specifically about the rarity of a Democrat who opposes abortion rights. How have party leaders responded to more moderate Democrats like him?
Well, that's a really interesting question, because if you're going to pick up the House, you're going to win seats that are outside your usual group. You're going to win those red seats that you pull blue, just as Republicans won Democratic seats in 2010 and 2014. Well, there's an argument from groups like Democrats for Life America who say if we have a litmus test that drives out all pro-life people and only has pro-choice people, then we're going to put those seats at risk. And it was interesting. Phil Spagnuolo up in New Hampshire came out as pro-life personally. I wrote a piece about it. Within an hour of the piece hitting, he had emailed me, hey, I want everyone to know I'm going to vote pro-choice. I'm just personally pro-life.
Really? He reached out to you, yeah.
Within an hour of it hitting, he was like, hey. And this is the deal. Planned Parenthood is the NRA of the Democratic Party. They have a lot of money, they have a lot of weight, they have a lot of influence. And an interesting number, when President Obama was elected in 2008, there were 62 pro-life Democrats in Congress. Today, there are 3. And it doesn't mean you can't win without them. But, Americans, just like guns, are very split on abortion. Particularly, for example, Republicans just had a bill that, called for an end of legal abortions after 20 weeks. That's a point where voters' opinions start changing. And it's an interesting, nuanced conversation. There was no nuance from Democrats. The word came down. You are not going to support this. And so the question for me is, will Democrats be so concerned about their base on abortion, on taking on Trump, on immigration, that they push past middle America, that they only have candidates who kind of represent the coasts, and then give up some of those suburban seats that they're going to need if they're going to win a majority in November?
Let me ask you about Pennsylvania. Spagnuolo's stance mirrors that of Pennsylvania Democrat Conor Lamb, who's running for Pennsylvania's 18th congressional district. What would it mean for Republicans if Democrats were to win a district that the president carried by 20 points?
Not only that, but that has been a long-time Republican bastion. It would be a truly bad sign. Republicans are spending a bunch of money. They just went up with a new ad this week that connects Conor Lamb to Nancy Pelosi, who they believe. Nancy Pelosi is the Republicans' most valuable Democratic player. They love her. They put her in every ad. They think that it helps them. But it's interesting because, once again, Conor Lamb is Catholic. He's trying to let people know, hey, I'm more of a moderate Democrat. But when he was asked by the Weekly Standard, so would you support this 20-week restriction on abortion, which is polls pretty well, it's pretty popular, he said, no, I would not support that. He took the Planned Parenthood position. And my point is not about Conor Lamb. It is simply that if Democrats listen to the Liz Warren wing of their party, which is an important part, and they don't listen to the rest of the party, I think that's the only way they don't take the House, is if they kind of push past Peoria. Stuff plays in Peoria. If they push past Peoria and say, we've got to keep our base hot. There's that sweet spot between, keeping your base energized and talking about issues that are somewhat polarizing, so they're motivated, but then getting so far out with your base that you drive those moderate suburban voters away.
Well, looking ahead, Michael, next week Texas will hold the first official primaries for the 2018 midterms. What should we be watching for there?
I would be watching to see how on Republican sides the gun issue plays. You know, President Trump had that conference you were covering today. I was watching on CBSN. And I got to tell you, my Twitter blew up with Second Amendment supporters going, he said what? They are not, they understand that he wants to make deals. There are policies like tightening background checks that they are absolutely ready to sign on with. But, man, he got out there. And the question will be, in the primary, will you see a shift on Republicans on the issue of guns? I predict you won't.
Really quickly, before I let you go, do you think that his past pledges of support for the NRA would actually allow him some more leeway with Second Amendment supporters?
You know, I mean, theoretically it would, but this is one thing I keep reiterating. We talked about this once before. It's not the NRA doesn't get its power from its money. It's a big spender, but it's not huge. It gets its money because there are millions of Americans who really support Second Amendment rights. And if the backlash in my social media is any indication, there are plenty of Trump supporters who said, pal, you've gone far enough. And they are not going to follow Trump off that bridge.
All right, Michael Graham in Boston. Michael, thanks so much.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.